China has built more roads, railways, and ports in Africa in just 20 years than Europe did in a century. But Africa is starting to realize there is a price. According to World Bank, infrastructure gap costs Africa up to 2% of GDP annually. China stepped in to fill that gap, but now economists, governments, and institutions are asking, is this development or maybe dependency? Since the early 2000s, China has become Africa's biggest bilateral lender. According to the China-Africa Research Initiative, Chinese lenders have issued over 182 billion in loans to African countries between the 2000s and 2023. The money built over 10,000 kilometers of railway and nearly 100,000 kilometers of highway, dozens of ports and power plants. In 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping launched the Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure plan spanning more than 140 countries. The Green Finance and Development Center estimates that China has invested over 1 trillion globally under this initiative. And Africa, it became one of the central arenas. According to the same institute, Africa attracted over $60 billion in BRI engagements in 2025 alone. This wasn't charity, it was strategy. But infrastructure comes with a cost, and that cost is debt. According to the African Development Bank, Africa's total external debt exceeded 650 billion in recent years. China is now one of its largest creditors. The African Data Hub reports that African countries owe China over $60 billion, with Kenya owing about 6 billion, Ethiopia 5 billion, Nigeria 5 billion. Now here's where the story shifts. According to the 2026 analysis by Reuters, African nations are now sending more money back to China in debt repayments than they receive in new loans. That means the relationship is no longer expanding, it is tightening. So is China helping Africa develop or trapping it in debt? The answer depends on who you ask. The International Monetary Fund has warned that several African countries are at high risk of debt distress, including Zambia and Ghana. Now, here's what most headlines miss. China is changing its approach. According to data cited by Boston University Global Development Policy Center, Chinese lending to Africa has dropped dramatically from peak levels in 2016 to just a few $billion annually today. In 2024, new loan commitments fell to around $2 billion. Instead of mega projects, China is now focusing on smaller revenue-generating investments, public-private partnership deals denominated in Chinese yuan. The World Economic Forum notes that this marks a shift from quantity to quality in China-African relations. In other words, China isn't leaving Africa, it's becoming more precise. So what is this secret war? It is not military, it is economic. According to a report by the US Government Accountability Office, China has spent hundreds of billions of dollars globally on infrastructure, far exceeding comparable Western efforts in many regions. While the West focused on governance, aid, policy reforms, China focused on ports, railways, logistic corridors, the building blocks of economic power. So, yes, China has built more infrastructure in Africa in 2 decades than Europe did in a century. But Africa is beginning to ask harder questions. Not just what are we gaining, but what are we giving up? Because this isn't just about development. It is about leverage, influence, and who shapes Africa's future. If you found this video interesting, kindly subscribe for more deeper dives into hidden geopolitics, because sometimes the biggest war are the ones you don't see.